Hi everybody, welcome again to our midweek meeting. Today we are going to paint some tattooed animals with a porcelain effect. This project combines two techniques we've explored before, easy animal illustrations and art deco bugs. The concept is very simple. We'll create a main subject in a pale off-white color set against a dark background, and then enhance it with some ornamental designs. If you haven't seen our videos on designing animals in a simple way, I do recommend checking them out because in those, we break the forms down into basic shapes, then we add depth and dimension with color and textures. I'm leaving the links in the description below. For our first piece, I'm painting a hare. This one turned out to be my favorite from this batch. I am using an off-white base color, which is a mix of white with a touch of Silurian blue and burnt amber. I will always encourage you to make your own mix and make the colors as you like them better. However, if you are curious about my color mixes, here they are. For the main subject, it is about 90% white, 5% burnt amber, and 5% Silurian blue. For the background, it is 40% black and 60% Silurian blue. And finally, the tattoo designs 85% Silurian blue, 10% burnt amber, and 5% of ochre yellow. For shading, I simply deepen the mix with more blue and amber. For this project, I'm using a 300 GSM acrylic paper that has a similar texture and feel to canvas, but it is much easier to store. Nobody asked, but I already have quite a pile of paintings from our sessions, so using paper helps keep things manageable. It is easier to store, to give to family and friends, and even to ship in case anyone wants to buy them. Although this paper is designed for acrylics, it also works well with oils and even watercolor. If you want, you can use watercolor instead of acrylics for this project. You can achieve a similar effect, though layering will be a bit trickier and getting a deep dark background will require a lot of pigment. And here it is, our first composition of the day. Next, we will paint a horse following the same process, using a pale of white base and then adding layers for texture. I always think in layers. Instead of painting directly with the final colors, I start with a basic layer that can be either darker or lighter before building up dimension. This technique enhances depth and adds visual interest to the composition, regardless of how simple it might be. I think it also adds a beautiful handmade touch. I don't know if you understand it, but in A time and age where almost everything is created by computers, I think it is refreshing to have something that feels deeply human, something that we can relate to, something that resonates with us, and also something that will spark curiosity in the viewer. If you are not certain about adding the highlights and shadows, just make it all flat. It will work just as good, especially if you use watercolor because the paint itself grants a great texture already. The designs are inspired by traditional tattoo patterns, and I think they look quite alright. And then I didn't like much of the horse because I think I should have made better designs, but I think in the end it still looks good. And here it is, our horse. For the dog, I couldn't resist painting a bull terrier. And I won't say who was the model, but you can probably guess. When adding details, I prioritize texture over realism. The visual appeal comes from the combination of elements rather than the precision of them. Layering helps create richness in the composition, making it more dynamic. For these compositions, I wanted to replicate the approach we used for the bug paintings, creating a sculptural, decorative feel. Originally, I considered using watercolor, but since we've been experimenting with acrylics, I thought it would be a good challenge. Acrylics dry quickly, so if you want more blending time, you can add water or a retarder. Some of you have asked why I don't use gouache. Well, I know many people who create amazing work with it, but it's just not my cup of tea. Personally, I find it tends to look a little bit faded compared to watercolors or acrylics. Watercolor retains its vibrancy even in cheaper brands. And while acrylics dry darker and more intense, I prefer working with those characteristics rather than fighting against them. And as for oil, I absolutely love oil paint. It's by far the best medium for portraits, for still life, for realistic paintings, due to its slow drying time and exceptional blending properties. In my opinion, oil colors also appear richer and more vibrant. However, I have a mild allergy to its strong smell, and my workspace is quite small. Just for the contest, everything that I've created for this project was done here in my home office, which is rather small. And despite having a large window for ventilation, still isn't ideal for working with oil paints. Plus, oil painting can get messy, and I am so clumsy, so it's not a good combo. But we will definitely explore oil painting in future sessions eventually. Okay, so here it is, our lovely bull terrier. Tell me how you like it. Okay, so since I had extra paint, I decided to create one more piece. So the process was the same as with the other animals, an off-white base with a dark background, and then we add the layers for depth, and finally the designs. Each painting took around 30 to 40 minutes, which is much longer than our usual. But it is because it is essentially two designs in one, the animal itself and the layered tattoos. However, if I had more time, I could have refined a little bit further. But I like the raw, expressive quality of these pieces. So yeah, I like them. Many of you have shared how much you enjoy these exercises, especially the freedom of not feeling pressured to make things perfect. And that's exactly the point. Art should be about self expression and also fun. And here are the results of what we created today. I hope this inspires you to create your own paintings. As always, keep on practicing and thank you for joining us.